This is my first e-commerce business and it's done over $3 million in sales. But I've made some really big mistakes with this business. And if you're looking to start a business of your own, make sure to watch this entire video because I've made millions of dollars worth of mistakes. I'm gonna share every single mistake I made with you. And the first mistake I made was not understanding our numbers because yes, we've done over $3 million worth of sales with this business, but that is revenue and not profit. And people like to brag about how much money their business made, but all that really matters is the profit. And this business is an online dance clothing company, which means we have to pay for all the supplies that go into making the clothing, all the material, all the threads, everything. And we spent over $750,000 just on the material to produce the clothing items. We also spent over $1 million on employees because as this business grew, we needed to hire other people to help us manufacture the clothing, ship out the items, and run the e-commerce store. And we had to spend over $200,000 on shipping. Because this is an e-commerce company and we ship products all over the world, we spent a lot of money on shipping. We also spent over $100,000 on rent just to rent out this little 1,500 square foot facility. And one secret no one tells you when you're starting your own online store is you're gonna have to spend a lot of money on advertising. And we spent over $160,000 on advertising. Most of that money was spent with Google Ads, and I was able to generate a decent amount of sales with that money spent on advertising, but it's still another cost taking away from the profit. And we also spent over $200,000 on Amazon fees because even though most of the sales came from our own website, we do also sell our products on Amazon. And on top of this, we spent over $180,000 in just other random fees. Things like credit card processing fees, paying for our website, workers' comp, buying machines and other items like that. Plus a lot more of other expenses that when you're first starting a business, you have no idea about. And when we subtract all the costs, this business has done over $750,000 in profit, which sounds amazing, but that's been over the course of 8 years. And I'm gonna share with you year by year all the numbers for this business and show you what worked and what didn't work. I'm also gonna show you step by step how I created this business, how I created an online store, and share how I would do it if I had to do it over again. And at the end of the video, I'm gonna share with you the biggest mistake I made with this business, probably the biggest mistake I've made in my entrepreneurial career. And this mistake has literally cost me millions of dollars. So make sure you stay till the end of the video because this is one of the most important lessons I've learned about entrepreneurship. When I first decided I wanted to start an e-commerce business, I was probably in a similar situation to where you are right now. I had a corporate job that I absolutely hated. It was sucking all the joy out of my life. Every morning when the alarm went off, I didn't want to go into work. I felt like a complete drone. And on top of that, there was no incentive for me to work hard at my job because if I worked my butt off at the end of the year, I'd get a 3, 4, 5% raise. And this led to me getting really depressed. I started hating my job and eventually that led into me hating my life. I knew I had to do something different and I ended up reading this book called The 4-Hour Workweek. And in the book, it talked about building an online business and using things like virtual assistants to systematize and automate your business so that you could remove yourself from the business and the business will keep generating money. And when I read that, I was inspired, but at the same time, I was terrified about the idea of quitting my job because I was making good, easy money at my corporate job. But for me, the idea of spending the next 40 years of my life as a drone, working on building someone else's business was more terrifying than the idea of quitting my job. So I quit and I started this business. Now, one thing that no one tells you is when you go from making $80,000 a year like I was at my corporate job down to nothing overnight, it is a terrifying experience. And I ended up having a complete panic attack and having to check myself into the emergency room. The reason for this was I had no idea what I was doing. I realized that if I could create a business that could make me $100,000 per year, but I could remove myself from the business, that I could live my dream life. The only problem was I had no plan on how I was going to be able to do that. And I've since been able to achieve that goal. And that's what I talk about on this YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe. But it wasn't easy. In my first year as an entrepreneur, I made $38,000 in sales, which is around $12,000 in profit, which now is probably a good time to explain how I started this business and why I started a dance clothing company. When I first quit my job, a lot of different people had ideas on businesses that I should start with them. But out of all the different business ideas that people shared with me, the one that made the most sense to me was a business idea that my mom had. She was making high-end custom dance costumes for the local high schools and local dance studios. And she noticed that there was a hole in the market. People would come to her and ask for basic items, things like shorts, briefs, pants in lots of different random colors. And she would tell them, why don't you just go online and buy that? That's not really what I do, because she specialized in the more high-end dance costume. But the customers couldn't find these items anywhere online. So she would charge them a high price because she had to custom make every single item. And when she told me about this, I said, why don't we start this website and we can sell these items to people all across the country? And it was perfect, because if we just got a few sales a month, my mom could make the items. But as we scaled up, we could start hiring employees to do the cutting, to do the sewing, to ship out the different packages. And we did that. In our second year, we started hiring employees, and we ended up spending over $40,000 on employees. And we also 5x sales. We ended up doing about $200,000 in revenue in our second year. We ended up doing $60,000 in profit. Now the sales are going to increase, but at this point I should explain to you how we did this. And the short answer is creating an online store is actually extremely easy. There's websites like Shopify or tools like WooCommerce that make it absolutely easy for you to create your own online store. And if you're serious about creating an online store, I've done videos before comparing Shopify or WooCommerce. And if I had to do it over again, I would definitely use one of these platforms. I ended up using a different platform to build this e-commerce website, and it's had a ton of different issues. In our third year, we ended up doing over $400,000 in revenue, and we could no longer operate this business out of the house. We were starting to hire a lot of employees, and we just needed more space. So that's when we moved into this building, and we're paying around $1,500 per month in rent for this facility. Now during this time, while growing the business, I was traveling around the world. When I first quit my corporate job, I moved from Chicago down to Miami. From there, I ended up going back home to LA for a little while, and then I moved down to South America, and I spent about 5 months going from Peru to Ecuador to Colombia. I then went back home for a little while and then moved back down to South America and lived in Rio for a few months. Same thing, went back home for a little while, moved down to Buenos Aires for a few months. And during this time, I was traveling a lot. I wasn't really focusing too much on the business, which is another tip, that if you're trying to grow a business, it's not the best time to be traveling around the world. Now, of course, take breaks and go on vacation, but living the nomadic lifestyle isn't the best way to grow a business, because every time you move to a new city, you have to find a new grocery store, a new gym, you have to find new friends that you're gonna hang out with. It completely throws off your routine. Now that my businesses are more established, I travel whenever I want, I change locations whenever I want. But because of that, I decided to stop living such a nomadic lifestyle, and I actually had to move back to my parents' house. And to be honest, this was a huge blow. I felt like a failure. Even though I wasn't moving back because I couldn't afford to pay rent, I was moving back because this facility in my business was located in my hometown, where it just so happens that my parents live. But still, I felt like such a huge failure going from making $80,000 a year to having to live back with my parents. But it paid off. In year 4, we ended up doing over $600,000 in revenue. And once you subtract all the cost, it was around $160,000 in profit. Now, the truth is we reinvested a lot of this profit back into the business, plus whatever was left over, I still had to split with my mom. So it wasn't an insane amount of money, but I was starting to get closer to replacing my income. Now, it was around that time that I ended up moving to Santa Monica, which was my dream location. Now, I was constantly getting burnt out with this business because I'd work really hard and I just didn't have any passion. I just didn't care about dance clothing. And so then I'd run out of energy and I'd stop wanting to work on this business. It's around that time that I decided to start another e-commerce business, which was called Performance Nut Butter. And this business has gone on to be my most successful e-commerce business. I made over $100,000 in passive income in my first year launching this business. And I've talked about this business and how I've done it in other videos up here. But the real reason I was able to have success with this e-commerce business is I learned from all the mistakes of my first e-commerce business, Be Dancewear. I learned how to do things wrong and then I fixed it, and I was able to have more success with my second e-commerce business. And in our 5th year, I started focusing more on my other e-commerce business. So the revenue ended up plateauing at around $600,000 and the profit was at around $150,000. Now, one of the reasons why Performance Nut Butter, my other e-commerce business, had so much success is with Be Dancewear, we started selling products on Amazon. And it was so much easier selling products on Amazon than it was trying to sell the products from our own website. And I saw this, and that's what inspired me to create a product that was perfect for selling on Amazon. So in year 6, I started working on Performance Nut Butter full time, and I really wasn't that focused on Be Dancewear. But still, the systems I set up for advertising Be Dancewear made it so sales continued to grow. And we ended up doing over $200,000 in sales on Amazon and over $400,000 on our own website. And after you subtract all the different expenses, we ended up doing over $100,000 in profit, despite the fact that I was no longer focused on this business. And around year 6, year 7, I started just letting my mom keep 100% of the profit from this business because I was making enough money with my other business, and she was the one that was really taking care of the website and doing most of the work. In year 7, we ended up doing around $600,000 in revenue again, but the profit was a little bit lower at around $60,000. And then last year, with everything that happened, our sales got hit hard. We ended up doing around $300,000 in revenue, and we ended up having to lay off a lot of employees. But because of that, we ended up getting a higher profit at $77,000. So now let me share with you the 3 biggest mistakes we made with this e-commerce business and how I fixed it to create a business that was able to make me $100,000 per year passive income. The first mistake is we had too many SKUs. We had 40 different items that were available in 11 different sizes, and those were available in 200 different colors. Everything was made to order, which leads into mistake number 2, is that we did our own manufacturing. We were really 2 different businesses. We were a manufacturing business and an e-commerce website all put together into one business, and that's a lot to manage for anyone. And the third mistake I made with this business was I had no passion for dance clothing. I didn't care about dance clothing, and because of that, I was constantly working hard and getting burnt out because I didn't care about the product. So what I did is I created a business that only had 1 SKU where someone else could do the manufacturing for me. And most importantly, I created a product that I was passionate about, something that I was actually excited to talk about. And if you want to learn how I created a passion product business that's making over $100,000 per year profit, then check out this video right here. I share everything, including step-by-step how I created the business, how much it cost me to start the business, how much I make from the business. So click here. I'll see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.